I've been getting closer to my stepson lately, something I never imagined would happen. I became a divorcee just a year into my marriage. It turned out my ex-husband had been seeing someone else all along, and I was the only one in the dark. He had been with his girlfriend for a long time, but his family opposed their relationship. Unaware of all this, I happily went ahead with the marriage. I never snooped on his phone when we were dating. It just seemed natural for a man and woman of marriageable age to meet and start a family. However, problems started surfacing during our honeymoon. My husband kept stepping out, and when he returned after a while, his expression was bitter. I would have understood if he just went out for a smoke, but his demeanor was unusually gloomy for a newlywed, and he wasn't affectionate towards me at all. It turned out he had another woman, and he was in contact with her not only on our wedding day, but also the days following. I confronted him quietly, asking if this was how he intended to live, questioning if anyone could see him as a man who had just started a new family. He was indifferent. "Yeah, I don't think I can forget her." He agreed to a divorce without any fuss, and without any regrets, I packed my bags and left. Since then, I had trouble trusting men. Although it's gotten better, there was a tendency to look down on divorcees, so I never mentioned that I was a divorcee or that I lived alone unless asked. I didn't open up about my situation unless someone inquired, but there was something different about the man I was introduced to later. At least, he didn't seem like he would cause trouble over another woman. I met him in my early 40s. He was raising a college-aged son. His son was also gentle and handsome. When I got divorced, I was in my late 20s, a time when many of my college friends were getting married and starting families. Looking back, I experienced both marriage and divorce during what many consider the prime years of one's life. It wasn't until over a decade later, in my early 40s, that I met my current husband. He was a divorced man raising his son alone. His voice alone conveyed his kindness, and he had a friendly and welcoming demeanor. However, I soon discovered that, much like my first husband, he had a weakness for the attention of other women. This repeated issue caused me considerable stress, leading me to regret my decision to remarry. Despite my disappointment in my second husband's inability to resist other women, I found solace in my stepson, who respectfully called me Mom and did not follow in his father's footsteps. He was a bright college student, cheerful and insightful, which made me proud of how well he was raised, seemingly in spite of his father's example. Initially, our relationship was somewhat awkward, since I became his stepmother when he was a freshman in college. However, he grew on me as he shared memories while looking through photo albums, watched TV with me, and prepared late-night snacks when his father came home late. His attentive behavior made me feel wanted in the household, and over time, my fondness for him evolved, confusingly seeing him as more than just a stepson. Despite these feelings, I reminded myself of the impossibility of them. As a successful freelancer, I was financially independent and didn't need to rely on a man, but I couldn't bear the thought of hurting my stepson, who had come to see me as a mother figure. My son once mentioned while looking through an album, "Mom left us for some reason when I was deep in my teenage years." He still doesn't understand why his mom decided to divorce. It was clear he craved a stable family environment, and I could see his lips quiver slightly when he spoke about his mom. Knowing how much he longed for her presence, I thought it was right to divorce my current husband, but I decided to hang in there a bit longer. From the day I visited, my son held my hand and said, "Mom, let's get along well," which was both touching and heart-wrenching. Despite being an adult, he still harbored insecurities, and I resolved to make our relationship work. My husband's constant late nights caused a lot of stress, and I grew tired of bringing up his issues and arguing. His blatant late returns became more frequent, to the point where I no longer saw him as a partner. When my son applied for a student exchange program and began studying languages, I felt I had no reason to stay in this house without him. Yet the thought of him leaving was deeply saddening. I couldn't get angry at my husband's insincere late returns anymore, but I couldn't bear to hurt my son, who chatted away beside me as I prepared meals. I decided to foster a closer relationship with my son, and oddly enough, alcohol played its part well. As my son got busy with language school, I made special snacks to encourage him. "Son, let's have a beer." "I've got wedge fries today," I said, and he came running in light clothes, massaging my shoulders. We spent the night together until late, while my husband was away on a supposed on-night, 2-day workshop, which I hardly cared whether was true or not. Being remarried and lying alone in a large bed felt lonely, but spending time with my son felt truly wonderful. He said in a shy voice, "Mom, this is a first for me, too," which I replied, "Mom doesn't know much about men either, just got older," as I stroked his back. Since that day, I've been unable to let go of my son's reaching hand. Thinking about him leaving for a foreign country next month brings tears to my eyes unreasonably. He might study there and even meet a woman to marry. Lately, I've been speaking to him in formal language. At first, he was surprised, but soon he listened attentively with a proud face. To be parting ways with such a thoughtful and deep son. I have no words if you find it suffocating, because he was the first man who truly reached out to me. Saying goodbye seems incredibly hard. My son, who filled my life of betrayal with smiles, is indeed my true husband.